Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are very excited about our announcement today. We've spent the last few months listening to Minnesotans, and of course we know that they want us to make a significant investment in our road and bridge infrastructure. And I'm proud to say that today Republicans in the legislature are announcing the Road and Bridge Act of 2015 that will invest more than $7 billion of money into roads and bridges, new money into roads and bridges over the next 10 years. And I'm proud to say that we'll do that without raising the gas tax. To introduce the details of that, I'll introduce the chairman of the House Transportation Committee, Tim Kelly.
Thank you, Speaker Dowd. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. You know, it seemed like only a couple weeks ago, but actually over the last year, we've been listening, and we've been listening and working. We've been listening to the people across Minnesota who told us over the last year that transportation needed to be a priority. So in hearing that, we went to work. And even just maybe a month or so ago when we laid out our plans, initial polls came out and said 75% of Minnesotans believed that our plan was a solid plan. And all we had said at that point in time is that we were going to prioritize that and we were not going to raise taxes. So now in the pursuing weeks and months, we did that. And I'm very proud to stand here today to say that all the work that we've done over those last 2 weeks is culminated in this plan brought forward. As Speaker Dowd said, we will infuse $7 billion into roads and bridges and transportation over the next 10 years. We will do that by creating a new transportation stability fund and utilizing existing taxes that suggest to most Minnesotans when you pay a tax, whether it's fixing your car, whether you're renting a car, whether you're leasing a car, that it makes sense that that should go to roads and bridges and construction and transportation in general. So that's really what our plan does from a standpoint of infusing those dollars in. And we do believe that from a standpoint of where we've been in how we've collected tax and what we've used for transportation in the past, that this is more of a future-oriented approach that says now going forward we do have stability. We do have stability in the auto parts tax, in the lease tax, in the rental tax, that now the older antiquated system of a gas tax is just that. We can leave that behind, and now we have a source of income that will be responsive to these needs over the next 10 years. Some of the highlights of that, we will allow for the auto parts tax will go to a road and bridge account. All of the tax, by the way, will be funneled into the Transportation Stability Fund, and then we will move those from each tax into the specific accounts. A Metro Capital Improvement account from existing sale tax on rental vehicles. We've also included the small cities, cities under 5,000 who have not had funding through the regular formula, and that will be funded through an account with the rental vehicle tax. Our Greater Minnesota Transit Service, and also the Suburban County Highway Department or highway funds is revenue from existing motor vehicle lease tax. In addition to that, we look out over a 10-year time period, and we include bonding. We have trunk highway bonding that will infuse $1.3 billion over the next 7 years, and general obligation bonding that will infuse approximately $1 billion to go towards county projects and those not able to be funded by the department in the trunk highway bonding mechanism. As we look out, our plan was basically to get the stability that Minnesotans asked for, and to go forward in such a way that we can do that without raising taxes on Minnesotans today. So that is our plan, and I'll stand for questions. I think we have a few more comments first. Yeah.
Good morning, my name is John Peterson. I'm the state senator from up in St. Cloud, and I'm currently the lead on transportation in the state senate. And I want to thank Representative Kelly we've had a chance to meet a number of times on this plan. I'll tell you, Representative Kelly is a very impressive representative from Red Wing. He's very thoughtful, he's intelligent, and I think Minnesotans will be excited about the plan as you get more information over the next few days and throughout the day today. as we travel around the state. This is no doubt a very different, it's a fundamental shift, and I'll tell you it's what Minnesotans want. When you sit down and ask somebody if they think the money they spend on their car ought to go to roads and bridges, the answer is yes. If you think they think that money ought to get spent on the transportation system that they're supporting, there's no doubt it's a fundamental shift, and I think it's what Minnesotans want, and we're looking forward to hearing their response over the next couple of days.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Just a couple of comments. I think, as Senator Peterson has alluded to, and as Representative Kelly have talked about, this really is a game-changing concept. We think that there are a lot of people out there that expect more money to be spent on transportation infrastructure improvement. We already spend about $1.5 billion a year from current sources. So all this is in addition to the funding that is currently going into transportation. I think, just to maybe anticipate some of the questions that we might get, the governor has talked about the need for a dedicated source. But let's be clear. What he's talking about is adding a tax to gasoline that could be undone by any future legislature. Not saying it would get undone, but it's no more permanent than any other law that the legislature passes. We've got in this bill, what the House has put together, is a bill that does by statute dedicate revenues from current sales taxes into this Transportation Stability Fund. So it's out of the general fund, but it is just as permanent as anything that the governor has talked about. I think that's important to make that clear. The people of this state do not want additional taxes on gasoline. The recent forecast that we got talked about a lot of the economic improvement due to the fact that gasoline prices were low. This is not the time to say, well, let's load on another 16-cent plus per gallon tax to gasoline for the people of Minnesota. We look forward to working with the House and trying to work this bill through the Senate, and we look forward to seeing this bill enacted into law.
You know, Minnesotans have made it very clear to us what they want is a safe ride to work. They want the potholes filled. They want congestion relieved on the highways, and that's what we're offering today. And if you think about it, Minnesotans really will make a choice with this, whether they like the Democrat plan or the Republican plan. And we believe our plan makes sense because it uses existing taxes that have to do with vehicles and taxes related to vehicles. Makes sense to use those on roads versus the Democrat plan, which is to raise gas taxes 16 to 22 cents. That's a plan that most Minnesotans are opposed to, and we know we can get it done without doing that. So it's a choice that Minnesotans will make, and I think the Minnesotans will be with us in our plan.
So with that, we're excited about our new plan. Obviously, we think this is what Minnesotans have been asking for. They've been telling us they want a new investment in our road and bridge infrastructure, and they've been telling us they don't want a gas tax. So today we're here letting Minnesotans know that we can solve the problem. We've heard them, and we can do this without a gas tax. So with that, we will take some questions.
Did you consider offering a constitutional amendment to the voters to dedicate some of these taxes a la MVEST?
You know, we really didn't consider that. I know others have talked about it. We really can solve this problem without doing that. And you know, in order for a constitutional amendment, that would be basically almost a 2-year delay. And our commitment to Minnesotans has been that we want to put real money into roads and bridges right now, and that's what our plan today does.
Mr. Speaker, you call it real money, you called it new money. Is it really new money, as you said, or is it just moving existing money around?
It is new money, and it's about $7 billion that'll go into our road and bridge infrastructure over the next 10 years, most of which is dedicated. So it's a long-term, permanent, stable funding source for our road and bridge infrastructure. So it accomplishes all of the goals, and you know, we're proud of that fact.
Governor Dayton's already called it shifts and gimmicks.
Well, it doesn't surprise me that Governor Dayton doesn't like the plan. His fallback position is always to increase taxes. If you look at the governor's budget from 4 years ago to today, the governor's increasing spending about, to what he's proposing today, he's increasing spending about 25% over 4 years. And this is another way for the governor to get more money into out of Minnesotans' pockets. Our priority has been on Minnesotans, and we said that from the beginning. You know, Minnesota families aren't seeing a budget surplus in their own family budgets, and frankly, state government spending shouldn't grow faster than Minnesota family budgets. So our priority is back on Minnesotans and solving the problems they care about. We know they want money invested in road and bridge infrastructure, and we're here to show that we can do that with the money they've already given us. We can invest new money into roads and bridges, long-term, dedicated, sustainable funding.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
the governor has been traveling around the state making the point if you don't back his plan, some projects won't get done, including Highway 14. I know his plan has money for corridors of commerce. Would your plan have any funding for that, and would Highway 14
It
be
does.
get
I
done?
know you're specifically asking about that one project, and I'll let Chair Kelly answer that specifically too. But the governor has spent the last 3 months or more, and his surrogates as well, the lieutenant governor and staff, traveling the state of Minnesota trying to convince folks that a gas tax is needed. We saw just today in the Star Tribune that the polling numbers still are really against him on this issue. Minnesotans do not support a gas tax. And I think they know that we can solve this problem without a gas tax, and that's the reason. So I'll let Chairman Kelly kind of address the specifics of what gets funded.
Yeah. Thank you, Heather. Actually, for corridors of commerce, one of the items that I listed was the $1.3 billion in trunk highway bonding. And actually, 62% of that would go towards corridors of commerce programs, which is, I believe, about $806 million.
Mr. Speaker, the Democrats will ask this question, and I hope you can at least answer it a little bit. Where are you going to cut? Because you're moving money from other areas, and they'll want to know. You'll say that's later, and we don't know yet. But tell Minnesotans where you anticipate you might cut.
Well, the reality is from current level spending to what's available, I think we've got $3 or $4 billion of additional money. Almost $2 billion of surplus money. So I think it's almost illogical for the governor to say to pay for something he calls a priority that we need to raise a new tax after he has proposed spending every other dime that's available in order to fund his priority. He wants to raise a new tax. That's really illogical. We're going to lay out our budget targets tomorrow, so folks will get a little better picture of how things fit together. But the bottom line is there are plenty of resources available to fund this and quite a few other priorities, and still respect Minnesota taxpayers. So we're going to show how to do that.
Does this rely directly on any surplus?
It does, and I think it takes about, is it 225 or 228 from the carry forward from the current biennium, and really that was something that we had proposed in our House File, what was it, House File 4? Because we wanted to make sure we were putting real money into roads and bridges right now. So that technically comes directly from the surplus because it comes from the money that will be left on the bottom line at the end of this biennium.
Is there any money in here for transit at all?
Yes, actually, for the first time, we've actually dedicated funds to transit. That was both Greater Minnesota Transit, and we will also be utilizing a metro capital improvement fund as well that will go to transit.
How much is it?
That would be split between the two of approximately $16 million per year, or $32 million for the biennium.
And how about Greater Minnesota Transit?
That would be the same, Don. That would be the split.
So it's 16 million each per year, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Just to clarify, 60 million for rural and 60 million for metro, or 60 million total?
That's correct, 16 million for both.
Mr. Chair, what about the realigning, the 1.2 billion realignment from MnDOT? What does that mean?
That would be from the management resources that they currently use are paid out of the trunk highway transportation funds. What we're asking for there is that would be paid out of the general fund, just like every other agency would be. So it would be more aligning with our accounting the way we generally do it across the board.
You guys have opened the door on general obligation bonding. Are you worried that it won't be confined just to transportation? That a bonding package which needs a lot of support to get through, will attract other things?
Well, I think that the governor has proposed about $2 billion of general obligation bonding. We're proposing about $1 billion over the next 10 years to be used for roads and bridges. We would assume that would travel in a regular bonding bill with other projects as well. So it wouldn't be a bonding bill each year specifically for roads and bridges, but it would be part of a bigger package. But our proposal is that we would each bonding bill use a portion of the bonding bill, the total bonding bill for roads and bridges.
So are you planning to do one this year?
No, not this year.
So part of this package is traveling this year and part is for next year?
Correct, yeah.
Mr. Speaker, the $228 million of general fund revenue, that would be a one-time deal, or would there be general fund money allocated on an ongoing basis?
I'll let Tim.
Thanks. No, that would be a one-time. That, the $228 million infusion is the dollars from the carry forward this year to be used in 2015.
And the money from the sales taxes on rental vehicles and auto parts and whatnot, I mean, is that technically general fund money since that's where it goes now?
It goes to the general fund right now, but that's the part where we really felt, where we listened from the standpoint of the stability. People asked us for dedicated funding, and now making that association that if I'm going to spend my money on vehicles and cars, it's going to go to the Transportation Stability Fund, which in turn goes to support our transportation, roads and bridges, infrastructure in the state.
So Representative Kelly, I haven't had time to do the arithmetic yet. What's the total impact on the coming biennium 16 and 17 of tax revenue that you now propose to move out of the general fund?
Excuse me, will you repeat that?
You're removing tax revenue from now, taxes that now flow into the general fund to transit or highway purposes. What's the total impact on the coming biennium of that transfer?
Okay, well, initially, the 228 that we talked about is the carry forward, so that is not part of that.
Next biennium.
Right. So for 16 and 17, the numbers will be close to about 300 million.
A year or for the total biennium?
For 16 and 17.
The governor's released a list of projects and he's traveling around the state. Are Republicans going to release a list or do something similar?
Well, thank you for that. We've seen that list of 600 a number of times, and you know, I think that's unfortunate because it gives the appearance that if you don't back a gas tax increase, that none of these projects are going to be done. I think clearly what we've always maintained is the integrity of the Department of Transportation to use their process that they've always used throughout really their history of making sure that their engineers and their management discusses when projects should be done and at what level. So we would suggest that we will maintain that integrity by allowing the department to make those decisions.
Are you going on the road this week and next to sell this plan?
We are. We're actually going on the road today. We're dispersing out throughout Minnesota today, and we'll be back here in time for session this afternoon. But we're going out to talk to Minnesotans and really pitch our plan statewide today.
Where are some of the places you're going?
I personally am headed to Duluth. We're headed to Wilmer, St. Cloud. Where else, Susan? Mankato, Rochester, Owatonna. So.
And what's your message? What are you going to tell Minnesotans?
Well, we're going to tell Minnesotans that we have listened to them, we've heard them, and we're able to solve this problem, the priority that they want us to, in the way that they want us to, without raising a gas tax.
Now I know that you don't want money coming from new taxes, so leaving the tax portion out of this, compare your spending, how you would divide up the spending with how the governor would.
Sure. I think, and I'll comment just on maybe a little bit on the question about the list of projects as well that the governor has put out. He obviously put out a list of a little more than 600 projects that he thought, those type of projects could be funded. Not even he said that those projects would be funded. I think he did that in an effort to try to sell a gas tax to Minnesotans. The interesting thing is the plan that we're laying out today would basically fund that entire list as well. I think that when we're done with today, we should be agreeing on the amount that needs to be spent, what the need is over the next 10 years. And the conversation should really be left to how do we pay for it. And what Republicans have heard Minnesotans say is that they don't want a gas tax. We also paid attention during the revenue forecast, the February forecast. Remember that Minnesota's economy is doing well because the gas prices have been so low in Minnesota. So we know that leaving money in Minnesotans' pockets has been good for Minnesota's economy. I think we can also assume, forgive me for using a little common sense, that if we take money out of Minnesotans' pockets, that's going to hurt Minnesotans, and it's going to hurt Minnesota's economy. So what we're doing is we're going to solve this problem that Minnesotans care about. We're going to do it in a long-term, sustainable way with dedicated funds, and we're going to do that without raising a gas tax. And that's what I think Minnesotans expect us to do. That's leadership.
So compare how your spending would differ from the governor.
Sure. Why don't I have Tim step in and he can kind of line those up.
Actually,
Small cities too.
sure. I'll just kind of run down a list for you now and say that we know out of the $7 billion that we're projecting out over 10 years, $4 billion of that for state trunk highway. Now I think that is our critical piece because that's what we were told by Minnesotans from the start. From there, we have $1.5 billion for county roads, $790 million for municipal roads, $60 million for township bridges and township roads. Another key part is $280 million for small cities, which has been left out of our formula. That's small cities under 5,000. So we brought them into the mix as well. And then $139 million for Greater Minnesota for transit for those elderly, disabled people who also use transit systems in Greater Minnesota, and the same for the Metro Capital Investment Program that can be used for transit as well. So those are some of the high-level points that we've got in the funding mechanisms there.
And how does that compare with the governor? Where are you going to spend more or less than he would in his plan?
Well, I think the governor really hasn't stipulated specifics like we have here, and maybe less time should be going around the state suggesting that there's 600 projects out there that can be done, and more time focusing on the details here, which that's all we ask for from the process standpoint, is time to work through these numbers and to make sure that we can dedicate them so that they're actually going to the construction, to filling potholes, for fixing our infrastructure. And so I quite frankly, I can't tell you specifics because I really haven't heard the governor's details on spending like this.
But you could fund all 607 projects if that's what MnDOT wanted to do.
If the department decides that those are the projects that they want to fund, I'm sure $7 billion should do it.
Representative, will this capital improvement money, metro area capital improvement money, be able to be used as a match for Southwest Light Rail for the state's share?
That'll be used for capital projects. So that could be used for any transit capital projects. If you're looking at bus stops, shelters, items along those lines, that's what the investment can be used for. But it will be appropriated through the legislature.
Representative Kelly, the past legislatures have been reluctant to borrow or use bonding money. What's the argument for doing it?
The argument for doing it?
Doing it in this plan.
Well, I think historically, though, we have, when you've looked at from a bonding standpoint, that projects certainly from a road and bridge perspective have been in bonding bills. So when we look at where we're at historically too, when we look at the levels of financing and where we're at today, sometimes borrowing can be a very useful mechanism. So I would say just where we're at financially in the terms of from the state perspective and what we can get there is actually a good thing throughout the projected future.
And would you have the votes for that? Would you have a supermajority to bond?
Well, I'll defer to the speaker because we're certainly looking at next year as being that bonding bill, but so there's a lot of time to go before then.
Sure. The votes?
Sure. I think obviously a bonding bill always is a little more difficult to put together, but I think putting road and bridge infrastructure projects into a bonding bill would only gain votes for a bonding bill. So I think that would be a good use of those dollars, and I think it's really what Minnesotans would expect us to use those dollars for.
Mr. Speaker, when are we going to see a vote on this in the House, do you think?
That's a good question. I don't know the timeline, but this will be introduced, I would imagine, and work through the committee process in the next week and moving forward, but probably coming off of the House floor before the end of April.
There's been a lot of talk about the need. It seems like would this project be about $700 million a year over 10 years, and Dayton's over $1 billion? I mean, is this kind of what you're saying the need is?
Well, I had breakfast with the governor not quite 2 weeks ago, but a week and a half ago, and we talked about the need, and the governor expressed to me that he was less concerned about how we met the need than what the need actually was, and we talked about it. He told me that he believed the need was about $6 billion. over the next 10 years for road and bridge infrastructure. This plan meets that, his plan meets that. We're trying to find areas of agreement with the governor, basically, and that's what we've done here. But I also want to point out that we're siding with Minnesotans on the gas tax. We think it's not logical right now. We think that we can solve this problem without a gas tax, and we think Minnesotans know that, and that's why they don't support a gas tax.
Your plan provides about an order of magnitude less for Metro Transit than the governor. His sales tax increase would provide several $100 million a year, and yours is $16 million just for capital improvements. Can you talk about the decision to, I mean, I think that's a pretty significant difference for a lot of the state's voters who live in the metro area. Can you talk about why you're focusing your money in other places and not for Metro Transit?
Well, you know, we're focusing our money on the road and bridge infrastructure because we think that's what the vast majority of Minnesotans want. You know, I know that Met Council obviously has been pushing for plans to increase the trains in the metro area. Frankly, we don't think that that's a good use of the dollars, and you know, they have also put out a plan. It's my understanding within the last year that shows that they really can fund their transportation plan without coming to the legislature. So, you know, we're hearing some contradictory messaging from the DFL side on whether that money is even necessary. So, certainly, but we are not proposing to put any money into rail in the metro area. Any other questions?
Okay, thanks. We got to hit the road. The Metro Transit's self-sustainability item here, you said that they and CTIP will have to fund their operations themselves. Is that through fares? I mean, would you expect that they would have to increase fares to do so?
Well, as the speaker said, I think from a funding standpoint, they do have the funding mechanism in place. So as far as from a budgeting standpoint, the numbers that we are getting suggest that they can do that.
With the current fares that they're charging?
Well, I guess the subsidizing of the fares is something that they have to deal with too, and I guess I would let them handle that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.